Ariel, welcome.
Thank you. How are you, Jochen?
Very, very good. Thank you very much to do this with me together. We always are looking to, well, brighten the day for the horse, who we all are so passionate about. And I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit where you're from, who you are, and what your mission is.
Yes, I'm Ariel Boesner, and for those of you who may not be familiar, my home originally is Canning, Nova Scotia. I'm currently spread out between Florida, Ontario, a little bit in Quebec, and the East Coast, of course. And so I'm the creator of my proprietary connection-based training, um, which infuses my background in foundational classical dressage with practical horsemanship.
Wonderful. And how did we connect? Where do you think we have things in common?
I would say it's all about the horse. That would be my understanding. For me, the biggest thing with riders, and I faced myself as a rider, is to ride and compete without compromising my horse's feelings or um, I wanted the training to always improve them. That's the foundation of dressage. And so I think that moving forward, that's how we improve the sport.
I had to show you something. I wrote two books. One is Suffering in Silence,
Yes.
and one is The Silent Killer. This is the German book, and then the other one was the English book. And the reason why I wrote this is because, as a competitor myself many years ago, I had no idea how much influence the saddle can do. Now, we talk about the mid 70s, early 80s. That's also when I was riding as a 3-day event rider on a young team. I'm not here to impress you or the audience, but just to say that I've been where you were, and we're looking to make sure that the horse is the top. And we rely to professionals all around us, from the trainers to the saddle makers to the farriers, etc. And we didn't have so many body workers there who could really speak up for the horse. Like, can you imagine, chiropractic for horses was unheard of. Massage,
Right.
people laughed about it. So today it's very common. People know there's body workers, there's chandlers even, and there's osteopath, and you name it. There's tons and tons of good things for the horses who are really truly athletes. So I started this Saddlery actually as a stepping stool until I finished my evening classes, because I didn't pay enough attention in school. So my grades were not good enough to go into med school, because I was all about passion about anatomy. And I fell in love with saddle making and working around the horses as a rider myself. I just loved it. My dad didn't love that I didn't go the academia way, but in the long time, I'm really happy that I went this way. But man, did I started to ask a lot of questions. And it's almost like a cycle. It comes back with a vengeance right now, what happened to me. And
Mm.
this is why, until I die, I'm going to talk and share the stories with everybody, especially with people like you, who really want to do a good job. And you're pretty young still, and you trying to do it correctly, but still need, like I did, like all of us need, a professional around us.
Yes.
So my motto, and where I always go with what my parents raised me with, is the person knows the how will always follow the person knows the why. So we ask a lot of questions. How is this really good for the horse? Because you know yourself in your industry, there's a lot of people who say, oh, I do the proper horsemanship.
Mhm.
Oh, I do the proper dressage. And then you look at it,
Yeah.
but the rule book doesn't say the horse needs to do a circus trot, where the front limb is way higher and the hind leg is way in la la land, and he's not engaged at all, right? But apparently people clap about it, and now we're talking about notes which doesn't even relate to what's supposed to be done by the book. So we have a lot of controversy in the training, and the same thing happens in saddles. So there's also a lot of people who don't care about the why.
Yeah.
They just, who says what? Who says what? What's the new in word? What is the new thing? What's the new fashion? Let's do it. And the horse will always fall behind. So here is what gives me the energy to jump out of bed, the energy to talk to everybody worldwide, because the majority of the people love the horse here.
Yeah.
Those people who don't see the horse as an animal or as a being, living being, just as a machine, they will never listen to you or me. They do whatever they want to win the prize.
Yeah.
Right? They make saddles which are completely against the anatomy and never has done in the history of saddle making, and people buy it. So the good part is it's just a very small minority of people who don't listen to you and don't do it the right way, or to us or to the horse. So I love the topic you chose today. So why don't you go ahead and ask it for our audience?
Yes, I've been on the edge of my seat waiting to ask you. So, as a professional over the years in your industry, the challenges you face, do you think they've changed or remained the same over the years? And I guess why? I'd like to know.
Okay, and I'm so happy you mentioned this, because lately with social media, which we are on as well, we've seen a lot of influencers which make the people who really love horses to scratch their head and says, maybe that's the right path to
Absolutely.
figure out my horse, if it's in training or saddle making. So let's talk about saddles today, and it kind of relates with the training as well, but especially for young people such as you who have the whole career in front of them and to want to do it right. How can you, like you just asked, what is the right way? What have I seen change? And I alluded to this earlier. You know, there was a big wave where people say, okay, this is really ridiculous. The saddle has to fit now because of all the professionals who come, you know, the body workers. You know, so let's say this way. Let's say you go with this latest trend and this sounds great and you purchase the saddle. But your body workers, everybody who works on your horse, from the vet to the farrier to the chiropractor, etc., says, Ariel, your horses, I don't know what you're doing. And you scratching your head says, I haven't changed anything. As a matter of fact, I'm training with somebody in Alberta and he's amazing. I'm really connecting well with the horse, but I see he gives me the right tip, but we still disconnected. And all of a sudden the light bulb jumps in your head and says, the only difference was the saddle I changed. So you buy another one and another one and another one, which is great for saddle selling.
Yeah.
But how many times can a person buy a new saddle? So even if you have a lot of money and you don't care because you have great supporters or sponsors, what about the horse? What about the spiritual and the psychological damage to the horse? How many horses can you rebuy? Ah, not from the saddle. Well, as you may or may not heard, my story was my horse trusted me implicit and I trusted him. You know, as the 3-day eventer, when we jump through a bush, we don't know what the landing looks on the other side. Well, I did because we walked the course, but my horse didn't, right? So he trusted me. It's okay. I'm going to jump over. He knows what he's doing, and vice versa. I'm trusting he will land and we don't somersault. So when the horse's spirit changed, what I changed was the saddle, and I fell for, well, the marketing. I was a little bit something we all have on our shoulders. We have a white angel and a red angel, and the red angel is full of greed and envy. You know, so everybody had the saddle, and I wanted the saddle. I wanted the jacket. I wanted the paycheck. I wanted free saddle. So I made the team. I got the saddle, and everything went downhill. Changed the saddle back. Oh, but by the time I changed the saddle, the damage was done. So even if you have all the money and you change the saddles, what if the saddle hurts the horse? So I'm a big believer in pictures say more than 1,000 words. So I prepared something today. I want to show you something. And what that is kind of what's going on today, and which is a lot of falsehood and the
That's
industry marketing and a misinterpretation of assumptions, right? So that's, I think, a pet peeve of mine, I should say,
and mine, I would have to say.
right? So, and what I just don't understand, despite all the facts in research, still false marketing leads to horse abuse. Let's call the spade a spade. It is horse abuse. Period. There is no other words around it. Even though over the last 20 years there is a pain skill developed by several different veterinarians and universities. Dr. Tracy Turner uses a handhold thermography, and he scans the eye, and we know with a very cheap tool, okay, it doesn't have to be a $5,000 tool. That thing costs only $200. The vet can tell if the horse is in pain or not. So if a horse is in pain, we have the ethogram from Dr. Sue Dyson, who has been very instrumental in this industry. So why do we see still to this day so many horses in pain? And we even have universities in Switzerland, who write in that not all saddles are good.
Yeah.
So we have to always ask ourselves, why is it so important? What sounds good in marketing doesn't necessarily sounds great in testing. We also need to understand saddles are made for different purposes. So today we talk about dressage. It's another word for training. So when we talk about dressage, I always talk about all the sports, because there is not a single sport I can do as a horseback rider without training.
Yes.
So I may train a little different if I'm an endurance rider, right? So I train a little different if I'm a show jumper, but I still need training. So when I hear people, and it always cracked me up when we went to the German Olympic training facility in Warendorf, the eventers came in and all the dressage rider finger pointed, look how your horses look. We had dressage as well, and we needed to train as well, but we trained different, our eventing dressage horses like a dressage horse trains.
Yeah.
So, of course, the body of the horse looks different. I always like to compare it to runners. Runners who run 100 meters look like bodybuilders. And then runners who run 5,000 meters, they look like skinny little men or women, right? So different sports, different philosophy. So what changed in the dressage world or in the horse world is we are very well aware in our own body what is the pain cycle. The pain cycle is when I experience pain, so then I guard that movement, so the mobility is restricted. And the same thing goes with the horse, except I can inject it.
Right.
Lots of steroids going down now. And I remember that a lot of horses sometimes got burned the legs. I don't know what the English term is when they burn the nerves around the front legs, right? So that was so the horse is not getting lame down there.
Yeah, nerving.
Nerving, that's what you
They
call
did
it.
a lot of race horses too. Yeah.
Exactly. So you can still do the nerving, but the muscle get weak, right? It doesn't show lame, but it decreases the function. But the biggest part is the emotional stress. I think we can all agree that with this crazy world we live in, everything is fast, everything is abundance, and yet gasoline costs so much, cost of living, hey, everything is so expensive, the war, the sun flares, oh my God. But if I'm in the barn, I'm in this my little world, my little bubble, right? And my bubble is my horse. And when I'm with my horse, the world is okay. I don't think about the rest. So I think for all those people who like their bubbles and their horse, last they want to do is unintentionally hurt the horse.
Yes.
Okay, as I said before, right? There's a lot of people who don't care about the why. They just want to have what's the latest, what's the fastest news. And people don't care about the why, only interested in the who is and the what. They're just looking for the product. But let's talk about the people who really care, okay? Because my deepest belief, I think that people really love their horse. And for those who question and don't, just like I did when I was a kid, follow blindly whatever I was sold, okay? Question, does that make sense to buy my horse? They want to know if my horse has back pain. Why is it back pain? Is it my shitty riding? Is it the shoeing? Is it the teeth? What is it? So obviously, the interface between two beings, the human and the horse, is the saddle. In the book I just showed you earlier, the silent suffering and siling, the saddle fitting linked to physical and psychological trauma in horses. You know, this is really well received in the industry because it's not just written by me. I had 8 other authors in it who helped me to write it from the farrier point of view, from the Olympian point of view, from the trainer point of view, from the and so on and so forth, all professionals in there. Okay, so I always ask people, please protect your horse, follow the money. What is the real reason they pushing such a nonsense in the market? You know, so I'm going to show you a couple examples in a minute. Choose facts and science, avoid opinions and fake news. So when I say that is we face an enormous challenge in the equestrian world is because more and more people, is it the price while less people go? Is it the cost?
Right.
Is it the horse abuse? Is it just too controversial? What is it? The few people who really stick with horses love their horses and they will do everything they can do to protect them. Yet the industry who used to sell into the mass notice a decrease in sales and come up with all kinds of things. See, my educational company, Saddlefit for Life, that company is totally product independent. I also have a company what makes saddles. But can I really make a saddle for every rider in the world? No. But what I can do is I can follow my calling. My calling is I don't want any more horses and riders suffer from long-term damage by ill-fitting saddles. Yet the industry is flooded with false news.
Absolutely.
Why use shorter tree points? The design aims to reduce pressure on the scapular cartilage, how greater freedom or shoulder movement, minimize restriction to the trapezius muscle, support natural development. So before we reveal this nonsense of this ad, I always ask people, how come every saddle tree maker makes saddle trees with 3 points? Right? We're talking about 3 points, and I'm going to show you some. So you can see this one here is a saddle tree, and then this point, what comes out on the bottom, it's a 3 point. Can you see that area?
Yes.
And can you see how this from here to here is relative, that has a certain length, that's considered short. And you can see this here, how this is much longer.
Yeah, big difference.
Right, so how come this is so long and this is so short? Why do different tree makers make different lengths? So first of all, why do all of them have points? And what would happen if we don't have the points? Okay, so if we look at this, on what part of the shoulder cartilage does the short 3-point contact? So we need to understand which main muscle is involved in shoulder movement. For example, if I move the shoulder up, I'm not pushing it, I'm pulling it with my trapezius. And that's what they say, you know, the shoulder tree points increase greater movement when the focal point on the shorter tree points pressure on the trapezius muscle. Kind of makes no sense. Right? So let's look what nature does. You know, why do stallions fight and bite each other in the back? Okay. Why do they bite the mare when they breed it? So a short tree point or saddle what pinches gives the same reaction. It's a trigger point. And I'm going to show you in a minute what I mean. So which muscle gets bitten by the stallion? I already talked to you about this. This is the same what gets pinched with a badly designed fitted saddle if they're incorrect tree points without correct tree angle and tree width. So here's a top view of the horse. The superficial muscle is the trapezius I just talked about. But this little guy here, the spinalis dorsi, is there too. Okay, so these muscles here, if you ever had an apron what hangs off your neck, you won't wear that more than 2 hours because you get a headache. It's
Right.
just cloth. But if you have an apron what is crossed the straps, you have that thing on all day. So because there is nothing what sits on that trapezius muscle, okay, this muscle. So we need to somehow bypass. So here you see a cross section. The little muscle is planalis. You see it there in the picture. Second one from the top. You know that circle where that muscle ends, and that's where your stirrup bar is. Okay, so if you don't want that horse to jerk his head up and brace the lower neck and like really looks angry, then don't have the saddle press on there. So the 3 points or the saddle needs to bypass this. What to bypass? The wither area. Why do horses react so violently when they are bitten or pinched in the wither area by the stallions or the saddle? So this area also has nuclear ligaments, okay, what connects the whole spine from top to back, and it holds it. So when you do a bear claw and you crawl, make it really tight, and you go ahead and show me your bear claw. Now look at the back of your hand. Can you feel the tendons there?
Yeah.
Can you rub those tendons for me, gentle? Can you feel how rubbery, bony they are?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that didn't really hurt when you just did it a little bit gentle back and forth. Here comes the bizarre part. You do this one day for 5 minutes. Next day, your entire hand is swollen, thick, hurts. You can't even make a fist. So what you did, you inflamed the tendons.
Okay.
So in saddle making, the first thing we learned is work away from this. Don't put any pressure on the ligaments. Look how much look how much ligaments is in that wither area.
Absolutely.
See that? This is all
Yeah.
ligaments. So what is underneath there? Okay, these are the spinal nerves, and there's one in particular, is the cranial nerve 11. So I have the human ulnar nerve. There's an elbow of a human on the bottom.
Right.
And just like it says, when you hit your funny bone, it goes all the way to the pinky.
Yeah.
Okay? We all experience this as humans, but when it comes to horses, we don't believe the same experience can happen to the horse. They don't have a pinky finger. Okay, if they don't have a pinky finger, the analogy is when you pinch a nerve, it creates a reaction. So if you look at what kind of reaction it is, here again on the left you see the cranial nerve 11, once at the anatomy, and then that's how it looks on the horse. This jiggle line across the shoulder is either created when the horse is always bugged by flies and constantly shakes the flies off, okay, or when the tree point or the tree angle or tree width is incorrect and doesn't bypass the trigger point. So what the horse does, it ducks. Now when the horse ducks, it compresses, okay, the biggest nerve branch, the brachial plexus, and it goes down the leg. And now the horse is lame.
Yeah.
So when the horse goes down, braces, the horse has uneven steps. Who cares? I'm going to nerve him.
Yeah.
You still have a horse that goes upside down. But let's go back to the why do the saddle tree makers make saddle tree with 3 points? And what happened if the saddle wouldn't have 3 points?
Okay.
So if you look at the horse, if you ride him long and low, or if you ride him a little bit higher, the top of the rib cage where your saddle sits goes always downhill, like that arrow I showed you.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? So if you look at the eohippus, the first one, the hip was really, really high and the front legs were really, really low. But the whole skeleton, the neck flow of the vertebrae flow of the horse is still the same. When the neck is up, just like us, we have an S curve in our neck. But when the neck is down 17 hours out of 24 to look for food, graze, rest, that neck is straight and the food intake is straight. Okay, so when we understand what these animals like to do, run, walk, eat, and poop.
Yeah.
Then we understand, this is why nature designed the skeleton and the ribcage like that. And if I look from the top, look at the picture on the right. I put 2 horizontal lines and 2 vertical lines. The vertical lines is one behind the shoulder. I think we can all agree that the industry pretty much wants the saddle off the shoulder blade.
Yeah.
And we pretty much agree that nobody wants the saddle on the lumbar area. And also, like I talked about earlier, the nerves, we don't want any nerve pinching. So you can see how the rib cage goes from wide to narrow. And the only thing what stops the saddle from going over the ears is the shoulder blade. So if you do not have a saddle tree with 3 points, the saddle will go on the horse's neck. Gravity rules. Right? The only other thing is you can ride with a crupper. Okay? So many people don't like that. On the horses, may not too. Crupper is done often in the harness industry, but very rare in the riding industry. Many reasons. But does that make sense so far?
It makes a lot of sense. And the examples, the pictures, I mean, it puts it to life for sure.
Right? Because how often do we really look at a skeleton? You know, when the back is up or when the back is down, you know, and you've seen a lot of people talk about, the horse is off the forehand, and you look, the horse is still on the forehand. But the fact is, where does the saddle sits on it? On top of the rib cage, hopefully not on the spine. And you can see again on those pictures on the left how long these spinal processes are.
Yes,
Okay?
definitely.
We want to protect them, and we need long 3 points. And yet the industry forces people to believe long pre points is bad. Like this, another false industry marketing. Rather than relying on long 3 points for stability of a particular saddle, I forgot to take that name out there, sorry. And they use a special panel design.
Right.
Again, before we reveal that nonsense, in the past, think about it, in the past, did the saddle have long or short 3 points? Let's think about this for a second. So I'm going to show you a couple examples. Were these saddles built by opinions or to the anatomy and function for the horse and owner's benefit? There were no mass marketing. There were no social media. There were soldiers. There were people who had the horse from going A to B. And these horses better function.
They had to be the strongest, to have the strongest army to win the war.
It's like we have the one saddle historian. He writes in here, over 7,000 years, people and horses and saddles are together, and they're trying to get the best for the horse. Why?
Right.
Like you said, to win the war, to yield the weapon better.
Yeah.
Right? Today we use very few the horses in the warfare. Yes, some countries still do, in some areas we still do it. But the majority of the horse industry is sport and pleasure and hobby. So now that we have all this technology, we can ask ourselves, other than stopping the saddle from going forward, what else is the job which is reinforced with the galled plate? What else do we need to do? I kind of alluded this a little bit. We need to bypass these long bones, the nerve pinching, and where the stallion bites. And if you think about how big is a horse's mouth? So the horse mouth at the most goes 3 inches down on the side, 2.5 to 3 inches. That's where the teeth go around the wither.
Okay.
And when I show you the nerve pictures close up a little bit, then you understand why in the old day, saddles always had long 3 points. And the first question here, or the first idiotic saying, rather than relying on long 3 points for stability, who says you rely on that? Right? All these points, the saddle length, balance, rotating, shifting, twist, wither clearance on the side and top. Most people never teach wither clearance on the side should be checked. All people learn, on the top.
Yeah.
All of this is important, not just a 3 point. So look at the historical saddle making, okay? The historical saddle making here, we see the first one in medieval times on the top left. Then you see all Western saddles to this day still do it correctly. Even racing saddles in the early English saddle had all long 3 points. Look at the army saddle, what this person holds. On the
Yeah.
right, that's a big wither clearance with lots of room, and it doesn't touch two important factors. One is called a trigger point, what causes massive problems on the respiratory system. I don't
Mm.
think people particularly want it. Acupuncture is over 1,000 years old. In China, came over to the Western, Eastern world, I guess, if you go this way. And we now have it also for horses. Have you ever heard acupuncture for horses?
Yeah, I've used it, and
Okay.
on myself, it works.
So if we look, what is the worst spot you can do with your equipment is to hit BL13. This is
Hmm.
exactly where the short tree point will hit. Because remember what I said and showed you where the tree point and why the tree points are made. Tree points are there for the saddle to stop flying forward.
Hmm.
Okay? I just saw a TikTok, or was that Facebook? I think it was Facebook, where in Croatia they have massive weather and rainstorm, and there's this luxury yard, and the boat is against the dock, and the buoys were coming out.
Okay.
They're freaking out. You know what I mean? The bumpers, the buoys.
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you think happens to the boats, any boat, if you tie a boat to the dock without the buoys?
It hits the side, it wrecks the boat.
It wrecks the boat. The analogy here is the saddle tree is the dock. The boat is the horse's shoulder. The dock, yeah, maybe breaks too, but most likely you damage the boat. So the buoys, the contact area, is there to protect the boat. We all get it, makes sense, especially when you see a boat in a violent storm hitting from the waves, always the buoys. So now let's think about movement of the horse. The tree point will go forward. Do you want to hit it on BL13 or lower to bypass on the right? You see where that cranial nerve 11 ends. Do you want to really pinch there where the stallion bites? Let me make it a little bit more clearer here. Short tree points hit there, long tree points hit there. And we all have ridden horses where you say, oh my God, I'm sitting over the horse's neck. I need
Yeah.
to sit further back to get him up in front of me.
Yeah.
Who wants to sit so far forward with the saddle? The only thing what holds the saddle now from totally going over the ears is the girth. Massive girth goals, but my whole center balance is off. So if I want to hit the cranial nerve 11 and make my horse go like this, then I buy a saddle with short tree points.
Okay.
Sure, you can inject steroids in there, you can burn that off. I don't know how, but what happens if you have nerve damage? The muscle atrophies. And Ariel, I think in your career, even in your young career, you have seen a lot of horses with really skinny and underdeveloped wither muscle, right?
Yes.
So this is why you will never see in Western worlds saddles with short tree points.
Right.
Never. Because we all want to have a minimum of 2.5 centimeter or 1 inch clearance between the withers and the saddle. We learned that in Pony Club when we were 5 years old or younger.
Yes.
Then the side of the withers where the nerve runs. The teeth go 2.5, 3 inches down. So in the old days and to this day, all Western saddles still have 4 inches space on the side. So 1 and 4 is 5. And then the bottom of the tree, the 4 inch, is what? The tree where it rests. Where does it rest? Not on that blue light point in the middle. You see it there. Okay, that's a respiratory problem the horse has. And we have so many acupuncture, so many body workers who say, if you mess with the horse's respiratory system because of your shitty girth or shitty saddle or shitty training, the horse will go in stress.
Yeah,
Stress.
definitely.
Humans and horses act the same. You have cortisol level goes up in your blood, and then you get angry. And if the horse can't fight or flight, that's their nature, they go internal, psychological trauma of the horse.
I
Hence,
like how you say you can't train pain.
yes, it's ridiculous, right? So I can make it numb, but also lose the muscle. So here I want to show you a Western tree.
And so just so I'm clear, I'm just wondering for my own understanding, over time, like you've seen a bigger change with this short tree, long tree with English
Points.
saddles. Points, thank you. And you haven't seen this change with the Western.
Never.
Interesting.
Never. That's why I picked this one. This is the cheapest Western tree you can buy. Not because it's broken in half. It's because it's easier for me to handle. I just cut the back off. So from my thumb down to the bars, almost 99% of all Western saddle have what? 5 inches. 1 inch for width clearance and then away from the side. Then the bar, 4 inches wide. To sit on the longest, fattest muscle, but bypass the nerves. So I don't understand why the industry still makes trees with 3 points short. I don't get it. I really don't understand it. You know, are they really out there to hurt and damage the horses for life on purpose? Or do they try to reinvent the wheel and sell the customer a wheel what is square now and says, oh, with these square tires, the car goes smooth. Nobody would do it. It's so illogical.
Yeah, so you're not even sure where it came from.
So where did that come from?
Yeah.
So we have and seen it so many times. As I said in the beginning, the people are a little bit more cautious with their money. They don't want to buy saddle after saddle, horse after horse, and have insane amount of veterinarian care and body worker care. Of course it's important, veterinarian and body work. Let's get real. But do you really, really want to have extra cost in these times? Of course not. So people start to ask, why has my horse back pain? And I say, don't trust the false media. Do you understand how dangerous AI can be?
Absolutely.
Right? So AI has good and has the bad. They can imitate you now, and people, neither your friends know, is that really Ariel or is that the real Ariel or the fake Ariel? So we need to ask ourselves, if I want to protect my horse I love more than anything in the world, my savior in this world, my bubble, please think logical and listen to the people who get their emotional paycheck when they heal the horse.
Yeah.
Those are the body workers, those are the veterinarians. They even swear an oath, do no harm for the horse. Right? So there's a massive suicides in the veterinarian industry. Now, I'm not saying because of saddles with short tree points.
No.
But one of the things is because they go in with their heart. They go in massive debt to help horses. And sometimes they run against the wall because the customer just wants inject steroids in the hocks, hinds, leg, back, nerve them. And the vet is just, got to pay my bills, I got to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see how that tears them apart.
And in the moment, they're helping the horse, but it's really just a Band-Aid because of the issues from the training, the issues from the saddle, the issues from the farrier, whatever, right? It's not helping the horse long term.
Yeah. Here's another false news which absolutely drives me bonkers, right? So there is this video where the horse is dissected and the person who is a physiotherapist and a trainer and a saddle salesperson says, horses' shoulder movement don't move that much.
Oh.
The industry is overpowered. Look how this horse has a point of rotation. So this horse is being dissected and says, look, it hardly moves. Well, everybody who has watched CSI or understand a little bit what happens to a dead body knows a little bit rigor mortis, right? So, and on a horse that sets in an hour and you can't move the joints after 8 hours anymore, completely stiff in 12. Right?
Yeah.
You can Google this up and you can see what I just said. It's not just my imagination. So when we understand here we got a corpse or a dead horse and they move the leg and say, see how hardly it moves? Well, is that moving only because you move it just a little bit, rigor mortis? And what else is missing here? The shoulder muscle we call trapezius. We talked about the whole time about the trapezius, right?
Yes.
So in that video says, oh, the horse's shoulder only moves in one point of rotation. Yet every person who has ridden on a horse bareback or felt or saw it see that the shoulder can go upwards, backwards like me. In that video they say the only reason why humans can move their shoulders so much is because we have a collarbone. Huh?
Oh.
Did I just move my collarbone or just moved up my trapezius with my shoulder? See, Ariel, how nuts this is? How nuts people get fooled with idiotic, and it's done pretty
regularly.
very visual and pathetic with cartoons and other famous actors. And the girl holds up the sign, "Did you lost your mind?" You know, it's like so stupid. And this is a still shot of a video of a horse where a rider sits on it. Because when you lift weight, your muscle act more if you just lift your arm. So a horse what carries a rider uses their muscle, and you see the muscles a little bit more. So look at the picture on the right, on the bottom. You see a bulge there, which is not on the, on the left. You don't see it on the bottom, the right.
Yeah,
okay?
on the right.
Because obviously one leg is forward, one leg is back. But then you look closer to the withers. The side where the withers, where the mane falls to the left, you see the shoulder is higher than the shoulder on the right. You see that? What do you think lifted that shoulder? Because the shoulder has no, the horse has no collarbone. So how is that possible for the horse to lift the shoulder?
Right.
It lifted it with the trapezius.
Trapezius.
Right? So how can they go around and say the horse's shoulder moves just back and forth? Right? But this is from a physiotherapist, and this is from a trainer and a saddle salesman. So you got to ask yourself, what is the real purpose? Remember how I said follow the money?
Absolutely, yeah.
Follow the money. So looking at the shape of the horse's scapular, picture on the right, I'm holding the scapula there. There's no cartilage. Why would we build or sell saddles where the tree points are too short or pointing forward? Right? Look at the difference in the short and the long.
Yeah.
And that short point goes directly on bladder meridian point 13.
Yes.
Okay? Have you ever heard, or back to the Western saddles and army saddles, you will never find where the tree point is forward. It's always back. See this? They're all back. You will find, doesn't matter if you buy a Western saddle built in Denver or in Calgary or in China or in India or Indonesia, they all look the same. Right? They understand the purpose of the anatomy. So the question we got to go back, and I asked to challenge your saddle fitters out there, why do you sell me a saddle with metal pointing forward or short tree point, which hits exactly where the stallion bites? So I ask you a question. If you're a tennis player, okay, and you want to buy a good tennis racket, would you buy what fits your hand?
Yeah.
Would you buy something what hurts your hand so your serve is better?
If my serve was better?
No. Would you buy a tennis racket what hurts your hand so that with your pain you shoot better?
No.
Would you buy a bra what shaves you under the armpit?
No.
So is there any sports equipment humans would buy what inflict pain to get better results?
No.
Why do we do it then in horses?
That's the question.
Is it? Because the horse in the middle will lose if he goes into canter. If you put the rider on top of the lumbar, the horse cannot articulate through the back. Same with the horse on the right. They will hollow, brace the back, get that false irritation. The back goes down, the tail goes up. Okay, if he doesn't go up enough, I'm going to cut it and operate it so it stays up there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to understand the industry, same like look at the horse. That's what I was saying to you earlier, the dressage horse.
Yeah.
Right? So that people think that's cool, that's great. This is how I make my millions. And they do.
Yeah.
Okay? So for these people who don't care about the why, the industry follows the demand. I could never, ever, ever make a saddle where the tree point is short, straight, or forward. The worst ones are the forward ones with the metal sticking out. The best ones are long, like I showed you, with the tree point going back, because it fits the anatomy of the horse, like all saddles used to be built.
Yeah. And the anatomy of the horse hasn't changed.
Yeah. Have you ever seen an ice pick function? What does an ice pick do?
It
To break
hacks
the
up.
ice.
Yeah.
So why are we doing that to the horse's shoulder?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Veterinarians go online, hold seminars, and says short tree points with metal sticking out straight or forward will not only cripple the cartilage but also damage to the bone. This is like CSI saddle fitting. Because we can see on the bone deformity what your saddle did or not.
Yeah.
What I want you to do and see if you're flexible enough, take your finger, your index finger or your thumb, and dig it into your shoulder blade. When your leg comes back, your arm goes back, your shoulder comes back. But if something is pointy, you flick.
Yeah, definitely. That's the tree point.
Right? So if I'm going to put immense pain on that area, that horse goes trotting out of the elbow. Who cares if the shoulder lifts or not?
Right.
Because
And
that's
that
not what.
movement is often
Huh?
rewarded, which doesn't help.
Why is that rewarded?
Yeah.
The question is, why is that rewarded? Because we're dealing with an industry, what used to come out of the military, where the military was having a horse show. Means I'm showing the horse. We made it in an industry which is now a people show.
Yes.
We're rewarding the abusers. So we cannot say on one hand, oh, it's all horse friendly, properly horsemanship. And then the industry goes about all the money, follow the money.
Absolutely.
Judges used to be honored when they were picked for dressage show. They made pennies, sometimes for free, to make sure, is this horse trained for war? Okay? Back then was the officer, then the judges came. And the judges were never salespeople for horses.
Right.
So if you buy a lot of horses from me, of course I have to judge you better.
Absolutely. Yeah. The politics.
Right?
come
So,
into it.
and if the industry doesn't make a lot of money because the jumpers have a lot of audience, go to a dressage show, not a lot.
Yeah.
And then in the late 80s, mid 80s, all of a sudden there's a person who wins and the stadium fills. The audience applauds because we have circus horses now.
Yeah.
So the industry changed. So we cannot stop the greed and the horse abuse, but we can absolutely, your job, my job, stay the course and say, saddles are made out there, or I should say, sporting goods are made out there to inflict pain, to create the results. But if you are truly do not want that and you want to win your prize and you refuse to ride hyperextension or roll cure and you refuse to ride your horse through pain and you want to do it correctly and you refuse to have saddles what deliberately made to hurt the pain, don't fall for AI, false media, garbage what has nothing to do with horses.
Yeah. I agree.
Also, another classical industry falsehood here is most of the gullet plates, we talked already about the length and direction of the gullet plate, but we haven't talked about the width and the angle. The angle is this way, and the width is this way. So all people who are familiar with horse training, train horses, they want a nice top line, right? The top line means the top groups of the muscles gets wider.
Yeah.
To put it very simple, what are the top group of the muscle? The splenialis, trapezius, rhomboideus. And on the left you can see a yellow, a red line. The gullet plate is all the same, but you see the arrows in the middle?
Yes.
They're different lengths, right? And then the pictures to the right, you see a dotted line. That width is the same. but the
Mm-hmm.
angle is different. Do you see that?
Yeah, I see that. That's very clear.
So most of gullet plate act like a nutcracker. Okay, you change them on the top, bring them in,
Okay.
bring them out, bring them in, bring them out. So why does a nutcracker designed like that? In order to open the nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Who in the right world wants to have a saddle what pinches the wither muscle? I work so hard. I fly to Nova Scotia. I ride with the best trainer in the world. Ariel took me in her barn and I trained with her. And I put a saddle on what squishes the shit out of the horse.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Most people don't know it.
About.
Right? So when you have saddles adjusted, ask your fitter, do you adjust the width or the angle? Well, it's the same. Okay, so they're obviously selling saddles which are acting like a nutcracker.
Yeah.
Okay? There are, however, saddles what is with interchangeable gullet plate or saddles which you can adjust. They adjust the width and the angle.
Mm.
And even orthopedically, because let's face it, okay, none of us is symmetric, and for sure not the horse, because especially in the Western and the English world, we have a discipline where horses gets ridden and shown,
Yeah.
got it 1.5 and 2 years in the show ring. And in 2 years, the skeletal maturity line is it's so below the humerus, the shoulder, the spine hasn't even formed. There's lots of horses, over 55% of top show jumpers and eventers and pleasure riders and some dressage riders who have thoroughbreds on the track. And when they are only ridden one direction, the skeleton will form. And if
Yeah.
your saddle is not formed to their skeletal, in other words, the bigger shoulder, that metal needs to be open more, the saddle will twist. Puts massive pressure on this lumbar. Riders sit crooked, I go to an osteopath, I take tons of courses, I stuff my saddles to the yin-yang, but my horse's wither atrophies, and he has that pain there because the bigger shoulder doesn't allow. Same thing happens in dressage, jumping. Okay? So we accept and understand what happened when they bound their feet in China in the 1400s, or I always mix it up, 14 or 1600s. All the women had these deformed feet,
Yeah.
right? We know when we have wrong shoes. All the women in the 1950s had very high heels, very pointy feet. All my aunts had massive bunions and toes going to one side. Okay? So why do we think the body of the horse, the bone structure, doesn't change? Okay?
Absolutely.
Of course. So it's good to have a saddle that has the ability to have a horse's skeletal difference fitted. Now I have the opposite, who is the body worker, says, oh, you can't make a saddle bigger on one side. It's my job to make him straight, or the trainer. My job to train the horse straight. How can you train the transitional vertebrae on the right, what it has deformed in the lumbar? Or the middle picture, where the first and second rib is calcified together? How can you, through training, undo that?
No, there's no
How
undoing
can
it.
you, through training, change the humerus on the left side, which is deformed versus to the right side on the picture on the right?
Absolutely.
Right? The idiocy is mind-boggling what people try to sell to the horse owner who loves the horse so much. Yet
Absolutely.
we have so much tools and apps and show when the saddle doesn't work. Okay? It's very easy, very inexpensive these days to
The
do.
education is available like you're doing right now. That's the greatest gift that we have in this day and age is professionals like you giving this information for free. The education is there. There's really no excuse.
Yeah, we do need to understand all us humans have the red and the white angel on our shoulders.
Absolutely.
So if you want to listen to the white angel and you want to have the connection with the horse, please use your common sense and listen to your white angel. Don't follow through the greed and envy.
Yeah.
And why do people, like I said, the body worker, who is a physiotherapist and sells saddles with metal points sticking forward, why would you listen to these people? All she wants is to have these horses come in for treatments all the time, train the horses and sell you a saddle. It's a great money-making machine for her, but is it really working? Use your common sense, right? So
Yeah.
I would never have an ice pick saddle. I call those saddles ice pick saddles on my horse's back. It's ridiculous. Never done in the history of saddle making in the old days. Never done in Western saddles. This is also another reason, one of many, why the Western saddles has so less problems on the horse's back, and we see so less damage from a saddle. So to summarize it again, saddle fit to the horse, pressure away from the sensitive zones, which we just talked about. The saddle should sit on top of the rib cage where the longest muscle is. Okay, and in many industries, this has been talked to it, repeatedly, over and over the statements. People know the how will always follow, then people know the why. So, and I, like you said already, it's, the information is there. We like to share this. This is why in North America, the International Veterinarian and Chiropractic Association stands 100% behind us. In Germany, the Bundestierärztkammer, Academy for Veterinarians Further Education. In Ontario, the Ontario Veterinary Medical Association. So these people will not say, oh, we believe in Schleese. Oh, we believe what Jochen Schleese builds. And so, because we always show how the pain circle works. We show when you put massive pressure on a certain spot, you interrupt the oxygen, the nutrition. We explain to you that the lumbar is not my imagination. It has transverse processes, okay, where the kidney hangs from it. I don't care if it's a donkey, if it's a $180 million horse, or a $50 horse from the track. They're all the same, right? Oh, the Western saddle is long and sits there. No, that doesn't sit there. The Western saddle hovers over the back. That's what we call the back flare of the Western saddle. So let's start with really think about it. Do you want the saddle on top of this withers? No. On the side where the cranial nerve 11 splinalis thromboides is? No. On the shoulder cartilage where the BL13 is? Right, the nerve multifidus, the spine? No, none of this makes sense. Okay? Many saddles don't have a hand width between the panels. You will not find a single Western saddle, one you buy for $50, $5, or for $900. Not a single tree has less than a man's width spine. But look how many English saddles don't have enough spinal clearance. Again, I can make short tree points with special designed panels, sit it on the spine. Ooh, distributes the pressure. What stops it from going forward or sitting on the spine? If you have the money to do spinal surgery, go for it. If you want to see if the veterinarians and the body workers make this up, what I share with you guys, ride a saddle like this, take a thermography picture, and you will see the spine is inflamed. Do you want to have a saddle that sits too long? You want a saddle that bites like a stallion? So let's stop to follow this incredible myth. Your topic is beautiful. I love it because it really goes under my skin, because facts play no role in passing fads.
Yeah, absolutely.
Facts remain the reality over time and continue to be proven, the law of nature and scientific support. So let's stop with those two short tree points or facing forward tree points. If you really want to look from the saddle fitting of the horse, don't use them. Unless you are into this industry or this industry, look at the horse on the right. Does that look comfortable to you?
No.
This is between riding. Okay, there's a lot of money in it. Now, if you're an endurance rider or a polo rider, it's super hard on the horses. Treeless saddles or trick riders, we do all this stuff with horses. Jumper, cutting, whatever you want to do. Military is tough on horses. War is tough on horses. But if you follow to bring the back up, hind leg underneath, get the horse's support with the dorsal ligament system, the legs last longer. You don't need to nerve them. The horse lasts longer. Don't put a product on what hurts the horse. Have a saddle and the girth would adopt the tree width and tree angle. Stay away from the bladder, from the respiratory health issues. If you have a horse like this, these are your signs. The horse is ducking his brace, okay? For many different reasons. We know that. But if you ride saddles with ice pick action or metal pointing forward or out or straight or forward or too short, 3 points, that's what you get. These are not my pictures.
Yeah.
These are pictures by veterinarians. So let's stop this nonsense and let's go to areas what is supported for the horse. I'm sorry that was a little bit rough, a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Pretty brutal sometimes, and I may affect, hurt one or the other rider out there who doesn't believe in this and is sponsored and has a lot of money from companies who have short 3 points. If you and I don't talk for the horse, who will?
Absolutely. And I think that's what you said from the beginning. That's the devil and the angel on your shoulder. You can go back and keep feeding the devil, or you can go towards the light now that you've have the insight to do so. It's the motives that drive people that bring the harshness to the industry, unfortunately, that the horses see daily and that you and I see daily in the work that we do. So this was really great. I really, really appreciate all of your insights and knowledge, the amount of time that you put into making the video and making the imagery really come to life, the facts, and how accessible all of the information is. So really thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you for having us, and let's spread the good news around so many horses will be protected and hopefully ridden and trained with the same underlying message you do,
Yes.
and be fitted with saddles like we do. Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Hello.